I don't.
Okay, here we are in various and sundry places all over the world. And we welcome everybody here, and those of you that will be listening to the live stream, we welcome you too. So let's begin in prayer. Dear God, we give you thanks for this day, for this medium. We invite you to be in our presence. We ask that you open our hearts, open our ears. God, help us to learn of you as we study your scripture. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, does anybody remember what book we're in?
Wow, you
I
must
can answer that.
I think we weren't paying attention.
I think it's
The
the
Bible.
Bible.
The Bible. Okay. No. Who asked you to come? Okay. So we are in Genesis. Who knows what chapter we're in?
14.
14. There we are, chapter 14. All right, what happened in chapter 13? Does anybody remember? Let's see if we can remember 1 week ago.
Abram and Lot separated.
Okay.
Went separate ways.
They had to choose different ways, not because they were angry, just they had to choose, and Lot chose the easier one. Anything else happen?
Well, we learned about the 3 holy cities, Shechem, Bethel, and Hebron, right?
There you go. Good job. Okay. Anything else? What did we learn anything about Sodom and Gomorrah, or one of them?
So that's where Lot had, his land was close to that.
Why don't you, if you got your Bibles open, look to 13:13.
Okay.
Now the men of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against the Lord.
Okay, just putting that little piece in there because we might need that today. So we've got Abram, who's not Abraham yet. He's Abram, and Lot have gone their separate ways because they
And Lot
needed.
got to choose. Lot got to choose which one he wanted, and he went with the good stuff instead of letting Abram have the better stuff. He chose the better land that was easier to be prosperous on.
Right. Okay, so we got that. So now we've got an interesting chapter, chapter 14. It's going to be someone who's very brave that would like to read. And I would like us to read through verse 12, because this is names of galore. So who would like to give a stab at this?
I nominate Nancy because she does a really good job of just making up how to pronounce those names.
Okay, all the way through 12. Okay, past 12. Okay, yeah. Don't. Yeah.
I can't believe that you can even see.
How much we love you, Nancy.
I've got a steering wheel that's in the way of my Bible, but that's okay. In the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim. These kings made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinar, king of Admah, Shemaber, king of Zeboam, and the king of Bela, that is Zorah.
I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop. How many kings? How many? No, very good. That was good.
Yes.
How many kings are on each side?
Holy moly.
4? Is there 4 and 1?
3, 4, and then 1,
4 and 5.
3, 4, 4, and then 5.
3,
7.
4, 5.
4 against 5.
1, 2,
3,
1,
4,
2, 3,
1,
4. Looks like 4 against 5, doesn't it?
4 against 5. Yeah. I think we are. It sounds like a musical. Yeah. 4 against 5. Okay. So I just wanted to, while we're just
That's hard to do.
Yeah, 4 against 5 would be really hard. All right, Sue's coming in, so confuse her totally. All right, so we've got 4 kings against 5, so there's a lot of people out here. Okay, Nancy, you can go ahead since you've been nominated.
And all these joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they had served Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and subdued the Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Shavakariathim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir, as far as El Paran, on the border of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En-Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and subdued all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites, who dwelt in Hezazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboaim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, went out, and they joined battle in the valley of Siddim with Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, title king of Goim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of bitumen pits, and as the king of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into them, and the rest fled to the mountain. So the enemy took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed.
Yay,
All
Nancy.
right, woo-hoo, dance. Even in the dark.
The steering wheel is the biggest problem, actually.
Okay. So
Nancy, do you have
someone
to go
tell
to
me now.
Nancy, do you have to go
Nancy-
to Claire?
No, no. What time is it?
Almost 7:15.
I'm parked right in the front by the door. I'll see her.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so you've gone through, we've concentrated on all these names, but where are they? Now I want you to notice they have, let's see, first of all, let's sit around the campfire. Somebody's chronicling this. This is not your usual storytelling. It's basically a chronicle of what happened. Somebody's reporting. And you'll notice that there were the little names in the parentheses, my heads of parentheses. Why are they there?
I think about when we bought the house in Randolph, the first house we bought, people would tell us, oh, and they would say who lived there, the first people that lived there. And they would say, oh, it's the Smith's house, even though Smiths hadn't lived there for 4 different owners. But people know certain things by cerertain places. So some
It was
places had a
Otto's
name,
house,
and
by the way.
it might have been a different name at some point.
Okay, this is helping them go, this is the current name of it. This was the name that it was then, but now you know it is this. You're right, exactly. All right, so what is going on other than the names? We know we've got 4 kings against 5 kings. Which were the 4 or the 5s, contain some names that we know?
Oh,
That
I
we-
had some. Let's see.
Sodom.
Okay, Sodom and
Oh,
Gomorrah. We've got those
Nope.
names. Which were they, the 4 or the 5?
5.
5.
5. They were the 5. So they had the number, looks like the number, but what happened? Who won? Who won the battle?
4.
The
4.
4 of them.
4-1. So so we know now, where was Lot living at the time of this battle?
Sodom.
Here's
Near Sodom, remember, because when he chose this place with a nice green valley, but he also found some of the disadvantages of living in the more populous place. And what was that disadvantage?
Everybody else wanted what he had.
Right. And so he was captured.
He was captured.
Okay.
And they
he was
took his
carried-
goods and they departed.
Okay. So they had this war. Lot's group lost, and he was carried off with all the booty, as they would put it. So off they go. So there's 4 kingdoms who beat 5 kingdoms. Now remember, it's not like the Roman Empire. That's not how big these kingdoms are. These were little tribal, not kingdoms like we'd think of. More like, probably more like the city-states, the later on when we get to Greek and Rome. So it would be more like a city was the kingdom. So they're tribes. All right. So Nancy read the hard part.
And I'm gonna say goodbye because the kids are coming out. I'll watch the
Okay.
rest of it.
Okay, honey,
Right.
bye.
Thanks.
I love
Bye,
you
Nancy.
guys.
Thank you.
Me too.
All right. So now let's,
Molly, can you hear me?
yep, I can, Sue.
Can you get my face on the screen?
I can't. You have to do it. Touch your, move your mouse and look to the left, the bottom left, and you'll see a start video. Move your mouse, move to the bottom. There you are.
Yay!
Hi, Sue.
Good.
Okay, so we're in chapter 14 of Genesis, and we're going to start reading. We just had this big battle that Nancy read about, which has nothing to do with anything about anything else except that Lot was captured, along with a lot of the, and not just Lot, a whole bunch of people were
Mhm.
captured. We'll find that out in a little bit. So who would read from 13? This is an easy one, 13 through 16.
I can do that.
Okay.
One who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Ener, all of whom were allied with Abram. When Abram heard his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abraham divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and the other people.
Okay. So remember when I told you that when Abram left Haran, it wasn't just he and Sarah and Lot.
Right.
Here's the reference to these 318 trained people that had been born in his house. So this is what tells us that this was a huge group that traveled through. There's something else before we talk about the actual battle. We're going to take a little sideline. There's a title that's given to Abram that we have never heard before in the Bible.
The Hebrew.
Abram the
Hebrew.
Hebrew, yeah.
The Hebrew. So what do we hear about that later on in the Bible? Do we hear anything about Hebrews?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do we hear? I mean, anybody think of anything where else we hear that word, that name?
Joseph.
Well, it's the Jewish people, right?
Okay, that's what it's been known as. Anybody recognize the book of the Bible by that name? Hebrews? There's a book of
Yes.
the Bible called Hebrews. All right, now we got to talk about this name, Hebrew. because it was not originally a name for the people that we call the Jewish people now. Originally, it was people that were maybe refugees or displaced persons or people that are just kind of passing through. It was more of a generic name. It was not an ethnic group in any means. And we find the next time that we really find this is when Moses is leading the people out of Egypt. They're called Hebrews. But they were called because they were foreigners temporarily resident in the land. So there were different times that different groups were called Hebrews.
Oh,
Originally, it was not the ethnic name for the Jews, just
Oh,
simply nomadic people. This was new study for me too when I found this as a study. So he was called the Hebrew because Abram was this nomadic person just traveling through. So we've got that. We want to keep that in mind. And now Abram, what did he do with this 318 trained men?
well, he went and fought against the kings that had him.
Okay. The victory, he went and he chased them. There's 300. So how big were these armies? There were 4 armies. So did Abram just go and destroy these armies? What do you think happened? It doesn't really tell us. It said he was able to recover.
Brought back all of the looted property.
Yeah. So do you think it's possible they just kind of went in this raiding band and the people were headed home and he just went and he said, okay, we're grabbing the people and running.
Well,
So
and he
it
did
may
it at night too, so that might have helped.
Yeah, they just kind of, sounds like more that he didn't really defeat them. He just went and got back what was theirs and hightailed it out, got the heck out of Dodge. So there they are. He
That
got
was a
lost.
good decision.
Yeah, good decision at night. And he also had some, let's see. So now he's got back Lot and all of these all the booty, everything that was stolen. And now we're going to go from there and we're going to meet a very key person that will come up later. So let's read 17 through 20.
I'll do it.
Okay.
After Abram returned from defeating Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand."
Okay.
And Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. Sorry, I was almost done.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So who do we see now is really grateful to Abram for bringing everything back?
Melchizedek.
Not him yet.
No, not yet.
The first king mentioned.
The king of Sodom.
This
Went
king of
up to
Oh,
Sodom.
yeah, there. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, but remember, Sodom is this evil kingdom.
Right.
But Abram brought back all the stuff to them because Lot was there. They just brought everything back. So we have that king, and we have Melchizedek, king of Salem. Anybody know where Salem was?
Oregon.
There is a Salem in Oregon. There is a Salem in Massachusetts.
One in Indiana.
Okay.
Virginia.
Oh boy.
Oh, boy.
Okay. This is really key. Where is Salem in that area of the world? Do you
Well,
recognize?
My footnote says Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Oh.
Salem, Jerusalem.
Ah.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, ah. So Salem later on becomes Jerusalem. And what is the significance of Jerusalem? What's the significance of Jerusalem later on?
Center of
The holy city.
It's the holy city. It was where King David was the king, and the center of Israel to this day.
Mhm.
There's Tel Aviv. I don't know who's the cap. Anyway, but Jerusalem really important. So Melchizedek was not particularly called by God and worshipped some other god. It's kind of this interesting thing. So if he was the God Most High, does anybody have any footnotes on the name of this God?
Mine says, who is Melchizedek? He was obviously a God-fearing man, for his name means King of Righteousness, and King of Salem means King of Peace. He was a priest of God Most High.
Okay. Well, the name of the god was El, or we later know Elyon, which became a name for the god that Abraham worshipped. If you know El Shaddai,
Oh, yeah.
Elyon is one of the names in there. So El was the favorite deity of the Canaanites in Jerusalem, and this title was transferred to the God of Israel. Now, actually, this El, let me see if I can find it, was the son of somebody. So he was a pagan god. Where did I find it? Don't underline enough things. So this El and
EL.
El then becomes the name of God that becomes part of lots of names like Beth El. And how many names can you think of in the Bible, people's names that end with the name El?
End with
Think
what?
that ends with EL. Zerubbabel. Many, many names. Can you think of any names that end with the EL? I'm gone blank for this second, but I know there's a lot.
Daniel.
Samuel.
Samuel, Daniel. Anytime you see the EL at the end of the name, it's a reference to God.
Hmm.
When we see that, and you see that lots of the Jewish names end with EL, that's why. It's the L at the end of the name. So Melchizedek was representing this god El, and he was something that we don't have reference to anybody else in the Bible being. So what were the two roles that he was?
King of Salem.
He was the king of Salem, and
Priest.
he was the priest. How many other, do we ever see anybody else who was a priest and a king? In any time in Israel's history, is there any priest and king?
Jesus.
Bingo.
Because there's a lot of references that Jesus was our high priest in the same way that Melchizedek was.
In the order of
Or
Melchizedek.
in the order of Melchizedek, yeah.
Melchizedek. So that's a reference to Jesus. So this is where we meet Melchizedek.
Okay.
And through the book of Hebrews is where we find this reference to Melchizedek, that Jesus was the priest and king in the order of Melchizedek. So this is the origin of it, the priest king. So and he gives this blessing and talks about that he's going to be blessed by the God Most High in Melchizedek. So what does Abram do to Melchizedek?
Give him a
Gives them a tenth of the goods.
Does that sound familiar at all? That giving a tenth of things?
I
not
I think-
Kansas,
Haven't you
Indiana.
just preached some sermons on that? This is the time of the year to do that.
Okay, when we get later on into the books of the law, then you bring a tenth or the first fruits. So here we have this Melchizedek, and we have Jesus later on being in the order of Melchizedek. And here is this tenth being given to him. So can you see this foreshadowing of what's to come as you're sitting around the campfire hearing it? You go, oh, that's where it started.
Mm.
So this is the hints to what's to come. All right, Melchizedek. So let's read now from 21 to the end of the chapter.
But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I promised the Lord Elyon, creator of heaven and earth, that I wouldn't take even a thread or a sandal strap from anything that was yours, so that you couldn't say, I'm the one who made Abram rich. The only exception is that young men may keep whatever they have taken to eat, and the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, may keep their share.
Okay. So we've got this Melchizedek, who's kind of, and we've got the Elyon, that we have the Lord Most High. And Abraham says, I'm not going to have anything to do with you, Sodom. I'm not taking anything from you. I just wanted to go get my nephew back. You can take it. But I'm going to let the guys that went with me, I'm going to let them, pay expenses. The expenses will be covered, but I don't want anything to do with you. But remember, these Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, these were ones that were united with Abram. Didn't we have something about, they were the allies that helped win this battle? They can keep their share, but everything else that goes back to you goes back to you. I just wanted to get my nephew back.
Mm.
So we already see this wickedness of Sodom creeping in. And why did Abram go and make this attack on these 4 kingdoms? What was the reason he did?
Yeah, Lot.
To get Lot back.
Get Lot back. That's all it was. He didn't care about all the other stuff. They just got it back, and you go on your own way. So this is a really key piece. The big thing about it, it doesn't matter all these 5 kingdoms and these 4 kingdoms. It's just a historical reference of what's happened. But the big thing here is Melchizedek. And the big thing is that we see Abram as not caring about conquering people. He's never had that. We don't ever see Abram in this warlike tribe. He just was going to go and just wanted to get Lot back. That's all. And what lesson do we think Lot learned from this?
If he was important and valuable.
Yeah.
Okay, Lot
But his
learned he was
uncle-
important
His
and
uncle loved
valuable.
him. Yeah.
What, Carol?
That his uncle loved him. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Enough to go and fight for him. Yeah.
What else did he learn?
He didn't
Loyal.
necessarily have everything he thought he had when he picked out what he thought was the best of everything.
Mm.
It's so my take on this is it's better to be a farmer on Pine Hill than to live down in town with everything close and good.
Okay.
Well, Lot chose the easier route, and it didn't really pan out for him. He got in some big trouble, and fortunately, Abram came to the rescue. So all these other kings, and what do you think? The kingdoms that are leaving, these 4 kingdoms, do you think they cared much about what was taken back from them?
Well, it didn't look like they fought much to keep
No.
it.
They just like, so we don't know. Maybe they only took what they got from Sodom. Maybe they didn't get what everybody else was. Maybe they just took a small thing and they thought, oh, let them have it. We don't care. We're tired. We got enough other stuff. We don't know. It's just a story of Abram, and he's a conqueror, and another part of the personality of Abram. All right. Any questions on that chapter? And we'll move ahead a little bit. All right, let's go to chapter 15. And let's read verses 1 through 6.
I can do that. Oh,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
okay. Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, "Do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you and your reward will be great." But Abram replied, "O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son? Since you've given me no children, Elzadar of Damascus, a servant in my household, will inherit all my wealth. You have given me no descendants of my own, so one of my servants will be my heir." Then the Lord said to him, "No, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir." Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, "Look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have." And Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith.
Okay. So, how many times now has God came back to Abram and reminded him of his original promise?
Several.
Many, many times.
Many times. I've lost count too, but this is another one. So let's talk about Eliezer of Damascus. This is kind of a key thing here. So is there any law that says if you die without children, your servant is going to inherit what you have? No.
No.
There isn't. But there is this commentary said that this one confused lots of biblical scholars until they found some references to making someone, adopting someone in your house, someone to take care of you if you have no one to take care of you. And then that person would then become the heir. So it looks like, and now I just go back a step. So at the end of this, God is reckoning Abram as righteous. But Abram so far didn't trust God that he has already made arrangements for Eliezer to be the one that he's adopting into his house, because Abraham doesn't believe it's going to happen, that he's ever going to have children. So he's already taken these steps to make this one particular one, the one that's going to be the one to care for him as he ages and to then become the heir. Does that sound like a lot of faith? No, it does not. So Abram is going, okay. And he's questioning God again. He's going, "God, what's up? What's up? You promised me the son. It's not coming." Does he sound like someone that's got a lot of faith? No. So what does that tell us? So, but God is reassuring Abram, no, it's going to be your flesh and blood. It's going to be your blood child. Keep faith. So does that give us any encouragement for ourselves when we kind of question things and do things like hide crosses in Bibles?
Turnaround valves.
Absolutely.
Okay. If we do things bad and maybe we don't trust God so much, is God going to just drop us and
No,
say
thank heavens.
no? This whole story of Abram gives us that Abram was not this perfect stalwart that says, okay, God, you promised it. I believe it. I'm going forward. No, Abram questions again and again and again. And God has to come down and say, remember, I promised. It's okay. I promised. I'm not going back on my promise. It's okay, Abram. And Abram, okay, good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good now. I'm okay, God. I got it. Okay, we're good.
He goes back in.
And we'll find out. So it's pretty, and God, I just identify with Abram so much as he's just going, but it's been a while, God, you said so, but I don't see it happening. And God says, it's okay. Here's another sign. You need another sign. Okay, I got it for you. A lot of hope for us. A lot of hope for us. So now we're going to go on because we do have quite a bit of time. Let's go on to, this is going to be really odd. So we're going to read the rest of chapter 15 and just hang with it and just see what's going to happen now. So if someone would read from 7 to 21 if you want. There's not too many names until we get to the last two verses. So you can stop reading then and pass it to somebody else.
Nancy's not here. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Then the Lord told him, I am the Lord who brought you out of of the Chaldeans to give you this land as your possession. But Abram replied, O sovereign Lord, how can I be sure that I will actually possess it? The Lord told him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. So Abram presented all these to him and killed them. Then he cut each animal down the middle and laid the halves side by side. He did not, however, cut the birds in half. Some vultures swooped down to eat the carcasses, but Abram chased them away. As the sun was going down, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a terrifying darkness came down over him. Then the Lord said to Abram, you can be sure that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign land, where they will be oppressed as slaves for 400 years. But I will punish the nation that enslaves them, and in the end, they will come away with great wealth. As for you, you will die in peace and be buried at a ripe old age. After 4 generations, your descendants will return here to this land, for the sins of the Amorites do not yet warrant their destruction. After the sun went down and darkness fell, Abram saw a smoking firepot and a flaming torch pass between the halves of the carcasses. So the Lord made a covenant with Abram that day and said, I have given this land to your descendants, all the way from the border of Egypt to the great Euphrates River, the land now occupied by the Kenites, Kenzanites, Kadamites, Hittites, Pretzels, Raphalites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgah, and the Jebusites.
Good job. Good job.
I like that.
Not up to Nancy's bar, but close.
What can I say?
I like the
Okay.
pretzel though, sis.
Pretzelites.
Pretzelites. Okay. All right. What is the meaning of this? What's going on here? So first of all, what's happening first with Abram in the first couple of verses?
Well, Abram is asking again for a sign. How will I know?
Yeah.
No.
So first Abram says, I don't have any offspring, and God
Right.
reassured the offspring. And now he's going, but what about the land you promised? How do I know this is going to happen? So what's this whole thing with all these dead animals?
Well, it has to do with the covenant, but I'm really waiting for you to explain this.
Okay. All right. So here's a little thing from the commentary. The ceremony which he partially prepared and partially witnessed in a vision was not a sacrifice, but a rite to ratify a solemn agreement. We have another reference to such a rite in Jeremiah 3:34, 18 to 20. the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar were besieging Jerusalem at the time, and the populace was in desperate straits. The king, hoping perhaps to unite the whole city in its own defense, made a proclamation that all slave owners should release their slaves. And it seems that a calf was cut in two, and the burghers, whatever that is, not passed between it to underline the seriousness of their intent. They must have been the leaders of the country. A burgher is the British name we have. They were, in effect, inviting God to cut them in two like the calf if they did not keep the bargain they had struck. So that's the background of this. This was so not a sacrifice, but saying, okay, cut them in half. And what's this flaming fire pot?
Well, he's used fire before which is as significant as that for like.
Yeah. It's just a symbol. We don't have anything other than we can assume that it's just a symbol of God's presence.
Okay.
And God coming and walking between all these animals, all this sacrifice, and Abram in a trance. And it's the same word used here that Abram went to sleep as was used when Adam went to sleep and God took a rib out of Adam to make woman. So this was like, really, he's out. He's not just sleeping. This is not just a dream. This is a trance. And this remember, Abram came from more the eastern part, and think about trances and this different type of meditation. So this was something he was in some type of very deep meditation, and this thing happened. And what was the things that God said were going to happen? Verses 13 through 16. Go back and look through that, and let's see if we can see what's going to happen.
Well, his
So
descendants.
he's gonna make them as slaves.
For 400 years.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
Where?
Egypt.
Yep.
Okay, so this is God prophesying. So do you think that when you're sitting around the campfire and you're hearing these stories, do you think that this had already happened? This 400 years of slavery had already happened? What I'm saying is, when the telling of this story, we know this wasn't written down for a long time. So at the telling of this story, when they're first originating the story, had the Egyptians already enslaved the Hebrew people? And then you're sitting at the campfire going, oh, God told this to Abram
Oh, I see what you're
long
saying.
ago.
I see what you're saying.
Could have been. Could have been. But it's just saying that. So what do you take with that? When Abram is hearing this, and God is promising it's going to happen, is it going to happen in his own lifetime?
I think Abram would have said, Lord, I want a different deal. I don't like this. His descendants are going to be slaves for 400 years, and I'm not even part of it.
Yeah.
That'd be not something that you'd get excited about, I don't think.
Right.
Okay, but it's telling him, it's showing Abram the bigger picture. It's not saying, hey, tomorrow you're going to wake up and all of these other kings, you're going to wake up and the whole land is going to be emptied of all other people and you're just going to take over and there you are. God's saying, this is a long-term promise. You're going to have an actual flesh and blood child. But the whole promise isn't going to be unveiled in your lifetime. All these things are going to happen. And I promise. So if you could see 800 years in the future, would you like to know that your kids and your lineage is going to continue on, is going to still be there?
Don't know that I'd want to know that they were going to be enslaved for 400 years, but yeah, I think so.
Wouldn't that be a cool thing?
In
If
the
God
end,
said,
they-
yeah, your descendants are going to be there, and here's what they're going to be doing, and they're going to be in the land, and they're going to be okay. Wouldn't that just give you a kind of, hey, okay, not everything good's going to happen to them, but they're going to continue on. My lineage is going to continue on for these 1,000 years. And here's the promise. And then you see this flaming fire pot, and you see the symbol of God right there in the midst of this trance that you're in. And how do you feel? How do you feel after this all happens when you wake up?
You know, if this is a foretelling of the Egyptians in the Israelites in Egypt and then being led out into the desert, then that fire would be that represent the pillar of fire that led them through the desert too.
Yeah.
Right.
This flaming fire pot, yeah. And I'm going to give you the land.
Now you would think with all of that, all of these promises to Abram, I mean, this is pretty specific about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
He still took matters into his own hands and screwed up.
Yeah. We're
Is
going to
the
find out
land-
next week is going to be our first, yeah.
Yeah.
Is the land that he was promised from the river in Egypt to where was that the current today, what we would say was Israel?
I can't say yes, but I can assume so. Because it's the land of all these people, and I'm sure we could, but the Canaanites, definitely. The Amorites, the Hittites, we know all those people lived in the land that is now Israel.
They probably
Yes,
the Nile River to the Euphrates. I'd have to look on a map, but
The Pretzelites, were they there too?
They made fun of me, Nancy.
We love you.
Yeah, you weren't here to read, so Mary had to read that.
So Mary made up names.
Okay,
great.
so we've got this pretty big things. We find a little more about Abram, that he's very devoted to his family and his nephew, because right now his nephew is the closest relative that he has. I mean, Lot is it. That's it. And I've seen people who haven't had children whose nieces and nephews become very important to them. And they should be. And so he rescues Lot, doesn't care about all the wealth and all the things that go with it. And now we see him bemoaning the fact again, oh God, is this ever going to happen? Am I ever going to have kids? God reassures him. And then he says, how about this land? Am I going to get here? All these people around, and look, I just had this battle with these guys, these gold Lot. What's going to happen? And God says, yeah, but it's not. It's a bigger picture than just you. It's going to be a much, much, much bigger picture, and you're going to have descendants as many stars as there are in the sky. Which, when we don't see the sky that Abram saw, because we have lots of things called ambient light.
Mhm.
Can you imagine in the darkness, total dark, when there's no street lights, there's no other lights around? Imagine that sky filled with stars. My son's told me when he's been in the Namib Desert, what the sky is so amazing out there. So this is what Abram saw. There's this comfort and saying, okay, bigger picture, cut all these animals up. And it's not like Abram imagined the animals, because we have him chasing away the birds. It's something he really did. And then he has this trance in the midst of all this. So did he get to eat the cow in the morning? Did he have steak for breakfast? I don't know. Okay, but we see the bigger picture there. We see Abram reassured, and we're comforted to know that Abram was still chosen by God, even though he had some serious questions, even though he made some serious mistakes, that he still was favored by God. And God, no matter what Abram did, God still kept his promise.
Well, that is so reassuring.
Isn't it though?
So reassuring.
And that to me, when I read this, the Bible becomes more of a reality to me, because it's not these great heroes, it's real people that make real mistakes, and they just, it rings of the truth, because you don't write bad things about people that are your heroes. You record only the good stuff.
Yeah.
But we hear all the good stuff and the bad stuff, and we hear everything in between. So anybody got any questions? Okay, a little side note for total free for absolutely nothing. David and I are watching this new series. It's called Ancient Mysteries or something. Anyways, it was the guy that wrote the book The Chariots of the Gods back in the 70s, I think. But he's doing more research. And this is totally unrelated, but it's a little bit about Genesis. And he's not an archaeologist, he's an investigative reporter. So he makes that very clear.
I've been watching that.
Okay, and it is so clear that the story of Noah's Ark and the big flood, the worldwide flood, just had to have happened. Just through the history of all of the places on earth where there is this story of this huge flood and the people that come. And it just, I thought, whoa, that's cool. It didn't happen in the time frame we think. It seems to be at the end of the Ice Age, which would have been 10,000, 11,000 BC. But pretty cool that the evidence through research, can't say proves, but definitely leans toward the real possibility that there was a worldwide flood. I think that's pretty cool.
That's pretty
Anyways,
cool.
that was just for free. Okay, any comments or questions before I turn off the recording?
Last week I asked a question and you gave me homework.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Oh, Carol.
So it was about Shechem, Hebron, and Bethel.
Okay.
So Shechem, after the Assyrian conquest of the northern kingdom of Israel, the city of Shechem declined. So what is the city of Hebron today? Hebron is the capital of the Hebron Governorate, the largest governorate of the state of Palestine, with an estimated population around 782,000. And then what city is Bethel today? Most scholars identify Bethel with the modern day village of Beitin, Beaton, located in the West Bank. So there you go.
Okay.
Well, only because we are now we're about 5 weeks from when we leave for Israel.
Right.
And we are starting to have, we haven't had one yet, but we're going to have 2 organizational meetings and start talking about, what we'll be seeing and what we'll be doing. And I really want to know if those cities still existed.
Oh, cool.
Good job. Thank you, Carol.
Well, now you'll sleep better tonight, won't you? Knowing that.
You should have 2 maps, like the map from, long time ago and then a current map so when you're going places, you can sort of figure out the old and the new and
There's
what's the same.
lots of years that with the Old Testament, there's lots of years that things changed over. You can't just have 2 maps. You'd have to have a bunch of
Well,
different maps.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Dan, that's a great idea, and I have no idea if that exists. So I'm going to ask if the person that's leading this group, if they know if there is something like that we can kind of follow along while we're going.
I'm sure there's maps. I know there's maps of ancient Israel and maps of Israel today, and I know you can look at them and look at the areas and find out.
I'm writing that down.
I'm going to turn us off.
Okay.
Here we go.